Hi everyone, it's Agnieszka from 5 Minute Language. Welcome to my channel. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and give this video a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. So today's video is about a question that comes up a lot when I speak to language learners, something that has happened to me as well, and you know, it's perfectly normal. I am able to understand English, French, Spanish, German, whatever language I'm learning, but I can't speak it. I just can't speak it. It's something that, you know, comes up a lot, and people often wonder, you know, what can I do? I've got all this knowledge, I've got the vocabulary in my head, but I can't really bring myself to speak. And, you know, I remember having this experience when I first moved to France about 11 years ago now. And when I arrived, I thought I was fluent because I had all this vocabulary. You know, I was reading novels and watching films in French, which kind of made me think that my level was really high. But then when it came to having conversations with my friends and, you know, other students, I was at university there, I just found myself really stuck. So I asked myself the question of, you know, am I really fluent? Am I really good at French if I can't really speak? So what can you do to improve this situation? I'm going to give you some tips in this video. So the first tip I'm going to give you is basically something that will help you avoid passive learning. So passive learning is basically when we learn vocabulary by reading or listening. We see a new word or hear a new word, we check what it is, and then we kind of memorize it. And that is passive because we're not really putting that word to use straight away. So what I recommend to everyone learning vocabulary, and it's something that I cover in my language courses that are about learning foreign languages effectively, is making sure that you produce something straight away after learning a new word or a new expression. So whenever you read something and you find a new word, look it up, check what it means, and then straight away find examples of sentences that use that word. Find them in a dictionary or online or in an article. Find those sentences, write them down in your vocabulary notebook to make sure that you kind of consolidate them a little bit in your memory, and then say them out loud. And the next step is producing your own sentences with that word. So once you've seen the examples of sentences, I want you to produce 3 of your own sentences using that word, write them down and say them out loud. And hopefully that will help you see that word in context and use it straight away. So the next step is whenever you revise the words, so you know, you've got a learning session and then you put your notebook away for a week and then you come back to those words. Do the same thing every time you pick up your vocabulary notebook. So don't just look at the words and try to think, oh, you know, what does that mean? I know what that means, so I've memorized it already. Do that exercise again. So look at the sentences, produce your own new sentences, write them down, say them out loud. And then the next tip I want to give you relates to something very simple, which is practice. And you know, it's easier said than done, but I first want you to confront how much time you actually spend practicing speaking, because it's easy to say, well, I can understand French but I can't speak it, when you haven't actually practiced the skill of speaking. And you know, speaking is like any other skill. It's like skiing or playing the guitar or cycling. You have to do it repeatedly in order to get good at it. There's no magical way around it. You just have to practice. So first, I want you to time yourself. So, you know, over the next 4 weeks, for example, whenever you're learning, time yourself and write down the times that you spend on practicing speaking and practicing everything else. And by everything else, I mean listening, reading, learning vocabulary, you know, looking up new expressions, learning grammar. So all of that passive learning is one chunk and the speaking is the other chunk. And then I want you to time yourself. How much time are you spending on everything else and how much time are you spending on speaking? And you know, the reality is that most of us spend probably less than 10% on practicing our speaking skills. So once you've confronted that, I want you to increase that percentage. You know, go up to 30%, 40%, 50%, because you need to practice. So I'm going to give you a couple of different activities that you can do to practice your speaking. So one of my favorite ways to practice speaking is preparing short 5-minute long presentations on a topic. So, you know, it's something that we do at school, at university when we study languages. It's just, you know, part of the learning process. And then when we learn independently, we often forget to do it because, you know, there's nobody there to give us the homework of preparing a presentation. So it's good to just, you know, prepare a presentation yourself and then deliver it. It can be a presentation about anything, you know, the history of your hometown, or what you did on holiday, or talking about your family, or talking about your future plans. Make sure it's a 5-minute structured presentation. Introduce the topic. Imagine that you're actually delivering it to a group of people. Make it good, make it clear. Use the vocabulary that you know, that you need to really fully express your message. And then I also recommend that you record yourself when you deliver the presentation, because that way you can give yourself some feedback. So you can watch the video and you can spot the different areas in which you want to improve. So for example, you might want to improve your intonation, or use different types of vocabulary, or you might notice something wrong with the pronunciation of individual words that you want to work on. So make sure that you practice that at least once a week. And then the next activity I want to recommend to you is paraphrasing, telling the story of something. So whenever you're reading something or watching in the language you're learning, make sure that, you know, every 5 minutes maybe you pause and then you paraphrase what you've just read or what you've just heard. So imagine that you're speaking to a friend who hasn't read the book that you're reading, and you just tell them what it's about. So every 5 minutes, you know, you can set a timer. Every 5 minutes after reading, you kind of retell the story in your own words. And that's a nice way to kind of incorporate a little bit of speaking practice into everything that you do. And finally, remember that this problem, understanding but not being able to speak, is something that most of us experience or have experienced in the past. You're not the only person that it's happened to, and you know, it's not something that's strange or weird. That's just the way things go. So you're not alone, and make sure that you follow my tips to improve the situation. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Bye!